Today, we're going to talk about a candidate for a regional mayoralship, and I'm going to let you guess who this particular candidate happens to be sort of running for. not, not too surprising. It's not Labour, but interesting enough for you to find out because I really have to question this guy's tactics. Yes, some of his campaigns are getting big clicks. But in a way, this is the problem. This is a guy who is running for what is going to be outside of London, one of the biggest mayoral locations, not only the biggest mayoral location, but interestingly, it's going to be one of the biggest rural locations. And that is, of course, North Yorkshire Regional Mayoralship. And if you don't know anything about North Yorkshire, this is pretty much a place that is dominated by the rural sort of infrastructure. Like once you cross into North Yorkshire, you know you're in North Yorkshire. The buildings are different. The place is just a completely different atmosphere compared to sort of South Yorkshire, which is very much sort of dominated by sort of Sheffield, Rotherham, Doncaster, and Barnsley being its sort of big sort of centres. West Yorkshire, very much dominated by Leeds itself being its big hub. East Yorkshire, almost somewhat similar in some ways, but never really achieved the same sort of grandeur as North Yorkshire, but East Yorkshire very very much dominated by Hull in some cases, but it's a completely different sort of place really to sort of North Yorkshire, and North Yorkshire, of course, vastly dominated by what is essentially the political powerhouse that is York, but it has a lot of regional challenges. The road infrastructure, something desperately needs doing up in North Yorkshire. If you've ever sort of driven through on and around there, something desperately needs doing at like, oh boy, does it need doing. And we're not just talking about the A65. There's a ton of road infrastructure that desperately needs doing. So this is an area that ultimately, once again, is going to benefit from having a regional mayoralship. But one of the candidates in particular, of course, running for this general election is this guy, Keane Duncan. And Keane Duncan is the Tory candidate. Doesn't actually advertise he is the Tory candidate. I wonder why. But no, he is the Tory candidate. And he is an ex-Daily Mail, not Daily Mail, Daily Star. Is it Daily Star journalist? Yeah, Daily Star journalist. So he's the former sort of news editor for the Daily Star. But he is putting forward all this clickbait stuff, these clickbait articles to try and sort of generate attention. And they're grabbing attention. But here's the thing. Eventually, once you are in, you have to then deliver on your promises. And one of the fun things he is promoting is he is promising half price housing. Now, for those of you who don't know North Yorkshire, especially the conservative regional, like rural areas in North Yorkshire, these are some of the most NIMBY places and people in the UK. If this guy thinks he's going to build all these quote new homes and then he's going to knock 50% off the price of them, I don't think he really understands half the people in his own party who are absolutely going to throw an absolute hissy fit over the stuff that he's going to do. So the idea that he's going to sort of achieve that as a pledge, I'm sorry. How is he going to deal with the NIMBYs in his own party who time and time again, the North Yorkshire and the Conservatives in North Yorkshire have actively gone out of their way to discourage any of these house buildings and also discourage any new infrastructure development as well. This is a guy who is running his entire campaign on being the biggest piece of clickbait I have ever seen. And unfortunately, if this guy gets in, he's going to do a lot of damage because he promised all these clickbait things and he ain't going to be able to deliver on them. He ain't going to be delivering on his 50% promises of housing. He recently put out this big thing about how he's going to nationalize the Scarborough Grand Hotel. And that's it, bear in mind. That's all he said. We're going to nationalize it. Why are you going to nationalize a hotel? Like I'm deadly serious. Like what you can nationalize so things like public services or sort of transport. Why are why are you going to nationalize a hotel? What are you going to do and how are you going to run that hotel better than it currently is? And how is that going to be of a benefit to the people of Scarborough? This is this is worrying, and I think he gets called out for it quite rightly by a local journalist. In fact, I'm just going to go over this local journalist quote because it just goes to show you um, what I'm talking about and some of his stuff on this. Um, so this comes from one of the Guardian articles about writing about this contest as well. But I agree with what Chris Tinley has said about this. So Chris Tinley worked at the Newquist-owned York Press from the 1990s to the 2000s. When the paper had a very long-serving political reporters who could continue to phone politician ups at, quote, any time and hold them to account. For the past 12 years, he has now run the independent outlet YorkMix, but says the commercial and local media now struggles to afford the resources to cover politics. Yep, that's true. One of the big problems is that local newspapers, who very, very much are responsible for covering these local sort of candidates, covering these local things and stuff like that, and holding these types of people to account, they just don't have the resources to do that anymore, or someone specialized in following all this. So it has been very, very much a detriment to a whole lot of areas, especially North Yorkshire, who have lost a lot of local press and a lot of local outlets. Who the only thing they tend to have now is the Yorkshire Post, and even the Yorkshire Post struggles a lot of the times to really keep up with content and political content coming out in some of these things. So anyway, he continues. He says, so Chris Tinley says, we've all had to follow up Chris Duncan's pledges as they are completely outrageous and headline grabbing. The worry for me is that this is just another Brexit bus thing, a thing that helps win an election, but then isn't interrogated by the media. I sent him a list of questions about how much money this would actually take and what the hoteliers of Scarborough would obviously think. All these very challenging questions. And so far, he has ignored all my requests for this information. But the unusual nature of this mayoral contest does not help. The York and North Yorkshire devolution deal will give the new mayor control over an area of 5 times an area of Greater London with a population of fewer than 1 million people. So this is going to have a very, very big impact. And yet this is the guy who is running and yet is making these crazy, outrageous, clickbait grabbing headlines. And then isn't being held, I think, properly to account for the amount of stuff that he is saying. And I think ultimately this guy is bad for politics. It's bad for politics in general because if he wins, then a whole load of other conservatives are going to start taking this guy on. And what Chris Tinsley guy said there as well, is right. This is just another Brexit bus, a big catchy promise that will win a campaign, but when he's in, when he has to deliver on that 50%, price of new housing, and then he's having to deal with all those NIMBYs, the not in my backyard people in North Yorkshire, who were ultimately Conservatives. He ain't going to be able to deliver. So this is a very worrying campaign. It's a very bad campaign. It'll be very bad if he wins, because he's made a lot of promises that he's not going to be able to deliver on. And he is skirting, of course, being held accountable currently now for some of these, campaign promises, like, nationalizing, the Grand Hotel in Scarborough. Again, the 50% off, building of new houses. How is he going to achieve all this as a regional mayor? And it's not that regional mayors do not have power, they do. But some of the things he's suggesting aren't that helpful. And then when the rubber meets the road, he's not going to be able to deliver. This, ironically, is almost the Brexit campaign and the referendum almost in a mini mayoral campaignship. And I really do feel that I have to warn the people from North Yorkshire, beware this guy. Because if you really believe his pledges now, when he gets in, he ain't going to be able to deliver on them. And he's going to do a lot of damage. A lot of damage. So, hey, consider warning delivered. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.